Let's start off with some poetry today. What we cannot reach flying, we must reach limping. The scripture tells us it's no sin to limp. Now, what does this mean? It means that if you find yourself in a situation where you have tried and tried and tried and you cannot find success, keep going. Even if you're tired, even to a point where you have to limp across that finish line, keep going. Now, this poem was actually quoted by Sigmund Freud in his paper entitled Beyond the Pleasure Principle. It's a poem that was written by Al-Hariri in his Maqaamaat. So it's a book, in an Arabic book that was written, I think, about 1,000 years ago by an author by the name of Al-Hariri. And the book is very, very famous as an extremely beautiful work of Arabic. If you understand Arabic, then it's definitely something worth reading. Now, why did Freud bring this up in his paper? So his paper actually deals with the pleasure principle and the opposite of it. Now, I'm going to explain that to you, but before I get there, I want to ask you a question. And the question is this. Imagine if you could achieve everything that you wanted to achieve. How great would that be? Anything that you thought you'd like to do. You want to become more fit. You want to learn something new. You want to do a new course. You want to achieve something on a personal level, either get a degree or get that new job or start a business. Imagine if you could actually achieve that. Now, my question then is, why can't you achieve it? Why do we often have these intentions and somehow never seem to get started? Or when we get started, we seem to carry on for a few days, maybe a couple of weeks, and then everything falls off. That's the problem that we face. If we could have only overcome that problem, we could achieve so much. And I think you'll agree with me. We could study what we want, get the job we want, start the business we want, get as fit as we want. We could almost be superhumans in our power. But it's this one thing that stops us. We somehow just quit. So Freud decided to look into this and to study this phenomenon in human beings. You know what you want. Why don't you just get it? Why do you struggle with setting and keeping up with long-term goals, New Year's resolutions, whatnot? So he wanted to understand this, and he described his findings in this paper of his, which was actually quite a departure from his normal type of writing. So the paper is called Beyond the Pleasure Principle, and here he describes three things basically. On one hand, you have what is called the pleasure principle. He calls it the pleasure principle, and that is that we as human beings have this inherent desire towards pleasure. We want to move away from pain towards pleasure. And this is from the time we are born, right? When a child is born, when it's hungry, it's feeling the pangs of hunger. But then when the mother feeds it, then it gets pleasure, and then it's satiated and probably falls asleep. Now this persists throughout our lives. And so Freud says that a lot of human behavior can be seen through the light of this pleasure principle, this desire for pleasure, this desire for instant gratification, this desire to get what we want and get it now. So that's the one part of it. But then when he looked into why people can't stick to their resolutions, why they can't be persistent, he found something else. He found that deep within our psyche, there's the alter ego, the dark side of this pleasure principle, which he called the death instinct or the thanatos. Now, the death instinct, strangely enough, and we all have it, believe it or not, is the desire for destruction. It's weird, right? An inherent desire to be destroyed and become inanimate, to become like completely dissolved. Now, how do we know it's there? In some people, it's actually pretty obvious. You know those people who go skydiving and get thrills from bungee jumping and get thrills from shark diving? What do they tell you? They tell you when you face death, you feel alive. Why do they say that? Where's this coming from? This is coming from that death instinct that they have inside them. Now, throughout our lives, there is a struggle between this desire for pleasure and this death instinct, this desire for destruction, this very strange, odd thing. And standing in between them as a referee is your ego. Now, your ego is the part of you that is almost the balancer between these two here. What it does is, when you have this desire to act out on your impulses, let's say somebody bumped you and you just want to scream at them and get abusive, the ego steps in and says, whoa, this is not socially acceptable what you want to do. Or if you want to eat more than you are supposed to eat, you want to be a glutton, the ego steps in and says, whoa, you have to stop this, otherwise it's going to affect your health. So the ego is the balancer between these two. Now, I'm getting a bit technical here with psychology, right? But I'm going to get to my point now. And my point is this, that one of the manifestations of this death instinct within us, the self-destructive tendency within us, is that we give up on our hopes and dreams. We give up on the things that we want to do so badly. I want to study, but I give it up. I want to start a business, but I give it up. I want to be fit. I want to go to the gym. I want to work out. I want to be toned, but I give it up. This is one of the milder manifestations of this death instinct. And what we need to do is to control this instinct using our ego and to create that balance between the desire for pleasure and the desire for destruction. Now, how do we do this? We do this with a growth mindset. Now, a growth mindset is a mindset. Actually, they shouldn't just call it a mindset. It's a growth fact. A growth fact is this, that each and every one of us has the ability to grow mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically. We have the inherent ability to change. Now, a lot of people will tell you, but I wish I was more intelligent. I wish my IQ was higher. I wish I could be as clever as so and so. Listen, you do have that ability. You are a human being, and your mental abilities, your psychological, emotional abilities are elastic. And through practice, just like with your muscles, through practice, you can improve yourself. You can even raise your IQ through practice and through learning. I bet you didn't know that. So while most people think that your intelligence is something that is set, that you're born with, the fact of the matter is the growth mindset tells you that that's not true. Your intelligence is flexible. You can increase it by learning, or it decreases by non-usage, just like any muscle. So the more you use that intelligence, the more you use that gray matter, you use your brain, the stronger it becomes, the more intelligent you become. Now, in the same way, that ego, that controlling force inside us, that is the sort of the referee between that impulse, the desire to be a glutton, to overdo it with pleasure, and the desire for destruction. You need to train that ego. And how do we do that? Basically, self-discipline. Just keep doing self-discipline exercises. Now, some spiritual people recommend fasting as a way to discipline yourself, as a way to build up that ego, to make that ego strong, so that it can benefit you. It can basically play a significant role in controlling those impulses and that instinct. And through that kind of exercise, you like fasting, your ego becomes stronger. Now, another way to build up that ego, to build up that discipline that you need, is to just dive right in. Just dive right in and keep going. And the days when you are feeling down about it, when you're feeling like not doing it, that's the day to do more. So what I'm saying is that it needs practice, and it needs conscious effort, and sometimes it needs a fight just to keep things going. You need to understand that consistency, persistence is difficult. Don't take it lightly. It's something that's extremely difficult. And by you embarking on something that you're going to need to be consistent with, like going to the gym or eating healthy, There are times when you are winning in the battle, but there are most likely going to be times when you are losing that battle. And that's the time when you have to get up, put your chest out, and dive into battle like a warrior and put your best effort forward to fight this. Now, why am I telling you all this? Let me get to the crux of it. The crux of it is this, that one of the key elements of success in anything you do in life, literally anything, no, let me correct myself, not one of the key contributor to success, and this has been seen in studies over and over again, is not your talent, it's not your intelligence, it's persistence. If you can get that persistence, if you can fight that fight and become a persistent, consistent human being and stick with it no matter what, you will succeed. You will, capital W-I-L-L, succeed, because it's been proven over and over and over again through studies, through looking at successful people, and through just surveying them and asking them, what was the key to your success? Almost nobody will say, I was smart. They'll say, I worked hard. I worked harder than everybody, longer than everybody. And that's how I found success. So that's the first principle. The first principle for success. Outstay your welcome. When the whole world is telling you, quit. When people are telling you, give up. You stick with it. You stick with it until you find that success. Next one, next principle, stop caring. Just stop caring. You care too much about what other people think about you. That's your problem. Now, my son, my eldest son, Masi, is a very intelligent fellow, extremely intelligent. But he's often held back. There's so many things he wants to do. And like so many of you, he's often held back by his fear of failure, by his fear of what people will say, by his fear of whether he will live up to other people's standards, sometimes my own standards as his father. So one day, I said to him, son, you know what you need? You need a truck full of flip it. Now, I use a stronger F word, right? But because my mother watches these videos, I can't use that word, and probably it'll get censored on YouTube. So I'll just say flip it. You need a truck full of flip it. Now, what is flip it? Flip it is a bit of a don't care attitude about what everybody else thinks. It's a don't care attitude about giving attention to your fears. So for example, you are afraid to start something, say flip it and just start. You're afraid to jump off that bridge, you're bungee jumping, you're afraid to jump off, you're looking down, you're terrified, flip it, dive in. You're worried about what people are going to say, flip it, I don't care. Not living up to your parents' expectations, flip it, live up to your own expectations. So the power of flip it is incredible. You need to embrace that power, and you need to keep reminding yourself, just flip it. I don't care what other people say, I'm going to do what I need to do. And that is another key to your success. Because, let me tell you something, and I learned this through decades of experience. If you are going to worry about what other people think, if you are going to let your fears overcome you, if you are going to measure yourself by other people's standards, you're going to live a life of regret. You're going to be the one that's lying on your deathbed, and I'll talk about that a little later, and regretting, massive regrets. On the other hand, if you say flip it, and you do it the way you think is right, then on your deathbed, you will sing like Frank Sinatra. What you'll say? I did it my way. Number 3, be afraid. So what's going on here? You might think this guy is giving me all negative advice. First he's telling me outstay your welcome, then he's telling me to just stop caring and flip everything, and now he's telling me be afraid. He's supposed to tell me do not be afraid. Well, let me tell you something. Be afraid. Be afraid of one thing, and that one thing, be terrified of it, and that is regret. Because on your deathbed, the last thing you want is to regret all the roads that could have been taken, everything that you could have done but didn't. You know, there was this interesting story I came across of this nurse. I think her name was Bronnie Way, Australian nurse, who worked in a frail care center, and she had the opportunity to be by the bedside of many people as they breathed their last. And she asked them, what are your greatest regrets? And number one regret, number one regret of all of them was this: I wish that I had lived a fuller life. I regret the things that I never did. Anybody regretted making more money? Nope. Anybody regretted, I don't know, wearing more fancy clothes, driving fancy cars, living in palatial homes, traveling more? Nope. They regretted the path not taken. So son, daughter, child, friend, be terrified of that. Think of yourself. When you are lying in bed at night, think that this is your deathbed. Think that you are going to be breathing your last now. And ask yourself, do I have regrets? Are there things that I could have done with my life, with this life of mine? And then fall asleep with that thought, and tomorrow morning get up and frickin' do what you're supposed to do. Flip it and do what you're supposed to do. Number 4, break the rules. Another bit of negative advice. I think I'm going to get into trouble. Break the rules. Look, throughout your life, people are making rules for you. I mentioned in my last week's episode that when we are children, we are our purest, most quintessential, most original selves. And as we get older, we start shedding that real self and start adopting other people's rules and standards of measurement. When you turn 5 or 6 years old, it's your parents that are telling you, you should be like this and you should be like that. When you go to school, your teacher is telling you this. You should be good at maths. You should be good at literacy. Never mind you're a super creative. Never mind that you are an intelligent person when it comes to art and music and dance and you like to working with your hands. Never mind that. It's what they are telling you that you need to do. It's the rules that they are setting. And then when you become a teenager, it's social rules, what your peers are telling you. And then when you get older, it's the university rules, what they are telling you. And then when you get older, when you graduate and you go to work, then it's the workplace rules. Everybody's imposing rules on you. Everybody's putting you into boxes. Their boxes. How wide or narrow are those boxes? They define it. Your boss defines it. Society defines it. So I'm telling you, break those rules. You know, a preschool teacher asked me recently how she can improve her teaching in her class. In fact, 2 teachers asked me a similar question, a special needs teacher and a preschool teacher. And my advice to them is this. Help your students to become more comfortable with themselves. Help them become comfortable in their own skins, to recognize themselves, who they truly are, and to embrace that. Now, one of the most beautiful things you can do, when I was a principal, I used to walk around the school, and I liked going to observe the behavior of the kids in the preschool classes, because when you go in there, rather than everybody sitting like soldiers and facing front, what you'd get is, there you've got little Tom there scribbling on a piece of paper. You'll get little Jane there, little Fatima there that's sitting together and clapping hands and singing. And then you'll get someone else that's jumping over the desk or jumping onto the desk and off the desk. Now, it might sound like this is a very rowdy class, but what we don't realize is that these are human beings in their original quintessential selves who are just expressing themselves. Those 2 are singing because that's what they love. They are not afraid to sing in public, but you are afraid to sing in public, right? Or little Tom there that's jumping off the desk. This guy's going to be a sportsman one day. Or hopefully, unless somebody beats that out of him. So you get these kids expressing their personalities. So my advice to teachers, especially preschool and special needs teachers, is to consider the 5 intelligences. Now, if you want to know more about it, there's a book called, it's a book by Howard Gardner that's called, I think, Frames of Mind. It's called Frames of Mind by Howard Gardner. And in Howard Gardner's Frames of Mind, he mentions 5 different types of intelligence: linguistic, logical mathematical, spatial, musical, and bodily kinesthetic. 5 different types of intelligence. Linguistic obviously has to do with language, reading, writing, expressing themselves. Logical, mathematical, that's the one that everybody gets judged by, your IQ and all that. Few people are good at that, but not everybody. Spatial intelligence, the capacity to look at spaces and to imagine what the space can look like. So interior decorators, architects, etc. Musical intelligence, people who can sing, dance, play music. Don't you see some people are so adept at musical instruments, they can just pick up any instrument and they can start playing a tune. And finally, bodily kinesthetic, the sports people among us, the ones who are comfortable with their bodies, who take naturally to physical activity. Now, these are the 5 intelligences. Now, let me ask you a question. How many schools cater for all 5 intelligences? And how many cater for just one, the mathematical, logical mathematical intelligence? Now, this is a major injustice we are doing to our kids by not focusing on that. Okay, principle number 4 for success in business and in life. Be a failure. Be a failure. What does this mean? It means this: embrace failure. Take failure as not what you learned in school, that you fail because you are stupid. Thomas Edison, let me tell you this. Thomas Edison was expelled from school at 11 years old with a letter from his teacher saying to his mother, "This child is too stupid to learn anything." You know what the teacher's name? I don't know, and I don't care, because he is forgotten in history. But is that child who was too stupid to learn anything, was he forgotten? No, he's Thomas Edison, the guy that invented the light bulb, the guy that started General Electric, the guy that became an extremely wealthy person, that electrified America. Now, what kind of teacher couldn't see the innate talent that this child had and sent him home? That's really, really bad. So in other words, Edison failed in school. In a similar way, guess who's the other guy that didn't do particularly well in school? Albert Einstein. Yeah. Albert Einstein's teachers complained about him all the time, that this kid is not particularly bright. Okay, he liked his maths and things, but in other ways he wasn't bright. Now imagine if the school system prevailed on Einstein and got him to truly believe what they taught about him, that he's not a bright person. Would we have had the theory of relativity? No. We would have had just this ordinary guy who thought, you know what, I'm probably not good enough because my teacher said I'm not good enough. So if somebody tells you you failed, say yes, and I'm glad to have failed. In business, if you fail, accept that failure, embrace it like a friend. But like I always say, there's this old Indian saying that forget the failure and the mistake, but don't forget the reason for why you failed. In other words, take a lesson from it, right? You didn't do too well, fine, accept it, embrace it. Haha, I failed. But now figure out why you failed and never do that again. Next one, lose your faith. There I go again. I don't mean lose your religious faith. No, not at all. Religious faith is the most important thing. I'm saying lose your faith in your current comfort zone, in your current job, because things are going to change all around you and you're going to find yourself in free fall. Now, let me give you an example. Sometimes your company changes. Sometimes entire industries change. And you find that your business, the company you work for, the place you work is just left high and dry. And one good example is the cinema industry. Now, recently, Ster-Kinekor, one of the biggest cinema chains in South Africa, decided to close down a number of their cinema complexes, I beg your pardon, and to lay off almost half of their workforce. That's like about 350 people. Can they be blamed for this? No, you can't blame the business for it because the industry has changed. People just don't go to the movies anymore. Go to any cinema complex and you'll see it's depressing how few people are actually going to the movies. Go to the movies, look around you in the cinema and see how empty it is. Gone are the days, in the 1960s and 70s when the cinema houses used to be packed because people didn't have TVs at home. They didn't have video machines. Today, everybody is streaming stuff on their phones. You can get a Netflix subscription for what, like 120 rands a month. 120 bucks a month for all you can see versus 120 rands for one movie, or 250, depends if you go to one of the fancy cinemas. People are just not going there anymore. Last week we were at the Drakensberg. That's why you saw me sitting in the top of the mountain, and today I'm in the office, back in the office. So we were staying at this resort and they had DSTV there. It's a relic of the past, right? And I noticed as my boys were watching DSTV, they were watching this documentary, every 10 minutes there's an ad break. Every 10 minutes there's an ad break. And the same adverts are just repeated over and over and over again. It's insane. I sat and I watched for a short while and it drove me insane just sitting and looking at these adverts. Why does anybody watch sequential TV anymore? When with streaming, you control what you watch or when you watch and there's no adverts. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that sequential TV is on life support. It's in a coma right now. I'm talking about traditional TV because streaming has taken over. The only thing that's keeping sequential TV alive today is the sports. But imagine if Netflix or Amazon Prime starts getting live sports. If they start streaming live sports, that's it. That's it for sequential TV, for traditional TV. So what I'm saying is this, that industries change, businesses change. We are living in a time of rapid change, like it or not, hide away from it or not. Go and stick your head in the ground like an ostrich or stick your head in a closet, in a box. It's not going to help because change is coming no matter what. And you need to not have so much of faith that your current job is going to be there forever or your current business is going to be doing as well as ever. Always be like, one of those sailors of old times who used to go on the crow's nest and look towards the horizon. Look at what is coming. For those who lost their jobs at the cinema complexes, I feel terrible for them. And it's my heartfelt desire and my prayer that they get the better jobs than what they are losing. But the writing was on the wall. The writing was on the wall. You could see this a mile off that the cinema industry is dying. So don't find yourself in that situation. And finally, don't be happy with yourself. Yeah, some people will say, well, be happy with yourself. And I said that earlier. So on one hand, be comfortable with yourself, but on the other hand, don't be happy with yourself. What is this guy saying? This guy is contradicting himself. No, I'm not contradicting myself. Number one, what I'm saying is be comfortable with the person you are. That's one thing. And the second thing is every day become a better version of that person you are. In other words, don't try to be a lion when you are, in actual fact, you are a zebra. But once you've accepted that you are a zebra, then try to become the best zebra in the whole world. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you feel that you are a person who is inclined towards art or towards the musical intelligence, like in Gardner's 5 intelligences, then grow yourself in that. And never ever think to yourself that I'm not clever enough, I'm not intelligent enough to do this. Because like I said, your intelligence is elastic. It can keep growing and growing. And the more effort you put in, the stronger that intelligence will become, until you'll come to a point where you'll surprise yourself and say, whoa, did I really say that? Did I really do that? Did I really play that instrument that well? Come on, just put yourself in, fling yourself in, strengthen that ego, that sense of discipline, fight that impulse for pleasure and fight that impulse for self-destruction and become the best version of you are. Continuously grow. And then one day you'll look back and you will surprise everybody, even those people who were your biggest critics, who tried to pull you down, you will even surprise them. With that, I conclude, and I thank you very much.